one heck of a party. I always said racing people have a good time, so give yourself a round of applause for a nice day. I'm mad at you, Matt. You stole my joke. I was going to come up with that joke, but I ate the chicken, so maybe I can be up here for a while. As the motorsports writer at the Norwich Bulletin for many years and for Trackside Magazine, I had the pleasure of covering so many races at the Waterford Speed Bowl. And for any of you that have driven there, or for any of you that have competed there, it's a tight little place. Not much room, a lot of bumping, a lot of banging. Crazy things happen. I mean, I remember one night when the state police showed up and hauled about 5 guys out of the pits. Gee, a fight broke out. How unusual was that? But through all this chaos and some pretty rough times, our next inductee, Phil Rondeau, seemed to be a calm individual. Very seldom that I ever see Phil. Only one time that I see Phil get excited. And I would have gotten excited too if I lost the championship because somebody lost a videotape, but and he was, as a writer, you always hope, and I found out over the years that drivers and mechanics were really good to talk to. Although sometimes you'd have an occasion where, especially at Waterford, somebody would come up to you screaming and venting and wanting to, use every expletive in the book. Phil wasn't like that. Phil was quiet, calm, right, got to the point, and I always loved your laugh. Your laugh was just absolutely infectious. That's my side of the story. I'll tell you a little bit about Phil. Some of you might see the irony in the fact that our next inductee, Phil Rondeau, grew up on a farm in the Baltic section in the Connecticut town of Spring. Some of you might not. If you're looking for this rural town on the map, you first need to locate Norwich and move a bit north. The distinction here is Rondeau joins a group of former Hall of Famers who also grew up on farms. The late Richie Evans, Billy Wimble, and Chick Stockwell. Both Evans and Wimble's racing careers involved miles of travel in search of national championships. Like Stockwell, Phil pretty much stayed home, with the exception of a 2-year period when he teamed with Dave Morgenstern and ran the Hooters Pro Cup series in 2001 and 2002. Most of his racing was done in his home state. More on the Hooters Pro Cup experience will come later. Would you expect a teenager? You would expect a teenager with farming roots to be independent, used to long hours, and good with machinery. All 3 of these attributes can be found in Phil's DNA. He found himself heading off to the nearby Waterford Speed Bowl along with his friend Tom Goudreau to work on Tom's father Al's Modified, driven by Dick Dunn. It was just the beginning. By late 1982, Phil purchased his first race car from Arnie Williams and ran the season's ending race. Only Williams and another close friend, Brian McCarthy, knew that Rondeau was behind the wheel. An inauspicious start, for sure. It didn't take that long before the Rondeau name became associated with success. Phil hit the Speed Bowl's racing surface at a time of transformation. Big block modifieds were being phased out of the weekly programs, and they were being replaced by stock modifieds, SKs, and an assortment of full fender divisions. On a usual Saturday night, you could find Farmer Phil competing against Flying Brian McCarthy, along with Tom Fox, C.J. Fry, Jay Stewart, and a group of others. The division truly had strength in numbers, always making victories hard to come by. Only after a few wins in 1983 in the then street stock division, it would later have 2 other names, the strictly stock and eventually late models, and a sprinkling more in 1984. Rondeau's career took off in 1985 and kept ascending. He finished with 6 track championships at Waterford, added 3 more at Stafford Motor Speedway, and another at Thompson International Speedway. His 107 Waterford wins are second best all time, only recently surpassed in that total by Keith Rocco. He's the only driver in Speed Bowl history to record 100 wins in a single season. Phil first set his sights on Connecticut's other two ovals in 1986. At season's end, he had a track championship there in the late model division and will add two more. Management at Stafford, Thompson, and Waterford joined forces in 1987, and the Tri-Track Series was born. Phil won the championship, competing in over 60 races, and when the series was reduced to races the following year at Stafford and Waterford only, he again was the top driver. It took a 24/7 mentality to handle the schedule, Rondeau said. I used almost all of my spare time to keep the cars prepared and race ready. Perhaps the highlight in his 152-win career came at Pocono International Speedway in 1989 at the Race of Champions. A 50-lap street stock event brought out the best drivers in the Northeast. Rondeau dominated, leading 49 of those 50 laps. One of the prizes was a case of beer being awarded to each lap led by a driver. Rondeau and his crew took home 49 cases. It was Coors Gold, Phil remembered. Funny thing, I wasn't a drinker. Still, I had one in my hand in Victory Lane. Teaming with Morgenstein, Phil took his shot at full-time tour racing beginning in 2001. A 13-race schedule took the team from Canada to Florida. It started with a third-place finish in the Thompson Speedway event and bolstered Rondeau's confidence. It ended a year later. Between Rondeau and Morgenstern, they spent close to $200,000 and made back only $80,000. We sought sponsors and even hired a firm to help us, Rondeau said. We came up empty. He returned to the local scene, finishing out as an active driver in 2009 before turning to work with others. Phil is currently vice president of the Tri-State Kart Club located in Pomfret, Connecticut, where his son Anthony drives. He's also been involved, as mentioned before, in Bandolero racing. So I've never walked away from the sport, he says. Can't seem to do it. Some people have blood in their veins. I think mine are filled with motor oil. What has made Phil Rondeau so good? There might be a few answers. Consistency, being smooth, always under control, the right mental approach. Fellow competitor Tom Fox, a multi-time champion himself, believes that Phil, through a hands-on approach, always had an innate ability to make a car go fast. He was one of the best, Fox said. Could do it all. We used to switch cars at times. He always made my cars quicker. I get in his, and they feel and drive differently. It was unique. From the farm to the racetrack to Victory Lane, and now to induction into the 2022 near New England Auto Racing Hall of Fame, let's welcome to the podium, Mr. Phil Rondeau.
Oh, not good at this stuff. Never did, never was. Didn't like speaking in front of everybody when we won or anything like this. First of all, I'd like to thank the New England Racers Hall of Fame for nominating me. It's a tremendous honor to be inducted into this with all the Hall of Famers that are here, past and present. I'd like to thank my family, my mother, brother Al, John, Connie, my daughter Emily. It's her birthday today. Happy birthday. Anthony, my uncle Jasper, my cousin Brian. Without all these people, what I have done would not have happened. My brothers, Tony Mayers, and everybody else, this was not possible. It's like a 24/7, everybody, no matter when it was, working on the cars or whatever it was, these people were around helping all the time. And as everybody knows here, you cannot do it by yourself. There's so many people I have to thank. I know there's going to be people that I forget, so thank you to them. Bob Sweeney, Howie Blackburn put me in a car that Brian McCarthy was driving. I drove for them. Henry Oshesky at H&H Auto Machine helped me with motors and all that stuff. Like I said, Tony and Carol, Dave Morgenstein, and Matt. Matt was a terrific spotter. He knew where we had to go before it happened on the racetrack. It was like he was driving the car, and I was just the robot turning the wheel. Renee Dugas, the photographer at Waterford, Steve Schaefer, Steve Radway, Snap-on Tools. He was a sponsor for many years. Rich Silvestri for putting me in the SK and the tour car. That was amazing. We were at Loudon before the stands were built, practicing with cars. We went up there with windows all the way around on the tour car, and the things basically sucked. They wouldn't get out of their own way. I remember Reggie Ruggiero taking out the windows and going out there and blistering the racetrack. And they told us, well, we can't have you guys go faster than the Cup cars. So they put restrictors on us. It was insane. Pete Olson, Frank Barbonis, Wayne Burrows, Ronnie Hoyle, Gary Merchant, Mikey Dumas, Rico Bozzini, Warren Shipoleski, the gentleman that did lettering on our cars, Alan B. Cool, God rest his soul. I got a little story to tell about this one. Renee Dugas took a picture of me after winning the heat, and it was an up-close picture of the car. And it had the number in it and everything. And I got a phone call from Mr. Cardaway from the Waterford Speedball. He says, Phil, we have a problem. I said, what's that? I said, George, I says, you know, what's going on? He says, did you know there's a naked lady in your picture, in your number? And I'm like, excuse me? I turned around, hung up the phone with him, called Alan, and Alan said, well, I figured it'd take a little while for him to do it, but not 10 races. So he had to come over and re-airbrush the numbers so there wasn't naked women in my numbers. Fitz Machine, Genetti Trucking, Steve Simkowski, the Burt family. They took Teddy out of the car and put me in the car. I thought that was a really big step that I took driving for somebody else, because usually I drove most of the time all my own stuff for building everything. The Shalosky family, Melania, you're great. You're superb. Waterford Speedball, Stafford, Thompson. It's been a privilege to have raced for over 30 years in many different divisions, including street stocks, late models, SKs, tour type modifieds, pro stocks, Busch North, the Hooters Cup, all over New England and all over the country. It's definitely a privilege to be inducted with all the great Hall of Famers like Teddy Christopher, Bob Potter, Reggie Ruggiero, Mike Stefanik. I raced with all these guys. It's definitely an honor and a privilege. And thank you.